All right. So if you watch game 7, you know what happened in game 7. Tyrese Halliburton, it's not official yet, but it seems like he very likely ruptured his Achilles. And we know earlier in the playoffs, the same exact thing happened to Jason Tatum. Now, in basketball, the timeline for an Achilles injury seems to be about 8 to 9 months, but it can vary greatly. I know Kevin Durant, it took him about 18 months of recovery to play again. You know what? Klay Thompson was 14 months. So it varies, right? Kobe late in his career was about 8 months. So we're talking at least 8 months, maybe longer, probably longer, of an injury timeline for Tyrese Halliburton and Jason Tatum, which means they're going to miss the bulk of the regular season next year, if not all of the regular season next year. What they would be back, Tyrese hurt it late June, so you're talking about July. Well, when is he going to get the surgery? Probably July. So July, August, September, November, December, February, March, April. We're talking about he's out till April. I mean, that's the end of the regular season, and that's if he gets back early. If he misses a month, we're talking about not being back until the conference finals next year. Or not the conference finals, but the semifinals next year. And then trying to get back in the middle of the playoffs. Jason Tatum probably will be back around the first round next year if everything goes perfectly for Jason Tatum in this Achilles recovery. So those two guys are going to be out, which dramatically changes how we look at the East right now. The last two teams to come out the East are facing some hard realities, right? Their best players are out with an Achilles injury, on top of the fact that they're going to be up against the second apron from this point on. So, there's not going to be a lot they can do to adjust to that. This opens up a giant opportunity for the Cavs. Now, I would argue that opportunity was there, right? It's even more there with Tyrese Halliburton being hurt. I don't think that the Pacers were a hurdle that the Cavs were going to be impossible of clearing. I think if the Cavs were healthy, they would have had a good chance to get past the Pacers, but that's a matter of opinion. The Boston Celtics were seen as a hurdle that people didn't think the Cavs could get through, but now that hurdle seems a lot different nowadays. And basically the East is a huge question mark at this point. No team's a guaranteed thing in the East. The Cavs, multiple playoff failures. We don't know what they're going to be going forward. The New York Knicks, they had a better playoff than the Cavs, but there are serious questions about the limitations of that roster. They fired their coach, so we don't know what New York's going to be at this point. Boston, we talked about that. The Pacers, we talked about that. Milwaukee might trade Giannis. Like every team is in flux. There are young teams like the Pistons who might be able to make a big move here or there, or the Orlando Magic. And those could be the wild cards in the offseason because unlike the Cavs, the Pacers, the Celtics, these teams aren't going to be up against the second apron for what I believe. You could correct me if I'm wrong on that in the comment section. So maybe they're going to be more willing or more capable of making a big move. I know the Cavs want to make a big move, and we'll talk about that in just a second. I have questions about if they can for a lot of different reasons. But that, to me, is a giant opportunity. Now, the Cavs were the 1 seed in the East this last year without all of those other things going on in the East, right? With a healthy Tyrese Halliburton, with a healthy Jason Tatum and Boston Celtics, the Cavs were the 1 seed by a significant margin last year. Now, they didn't really turn that into that much of an advantage in the playoffs, and I think that's the big question about the Cavs. But even if you look at the Cavs and their playoff opponents, it's like the New York Knicks, who are a tough opponent, but not one that you think the Cavs can't get past if they play regular basketball. The Boston Celtics without Jason Tatum or Jason Tatum fresh off an Achilles injury just isn't the same threat as they were 2 years ago. The Indiana Pacers up against the second apron. Who knows who they're going to have to lose after this run. And then no Tyrese Halliburton till probably the second round, maybe even later than that. So And even then, he'll be fresh off an Achilles tear, which is not the easiest injury to come back and drop 30 off of. So the Cavs' path to the NBA Finals, and we're far away from it, right? And that's important to remember. It's June 23rd. One of these teams in the East that are like sitting at the 6 or the 5 seed, that are younger, the Orlandos of the world, the Detroits of the world, maybe they make a giant move here to completely swing how people feel about them, because they do have young players. And I believe in Detroit's case, they have assets. I believe that's the case. I'm not 100% sure, but Detroit might be a dangerous team right now, right? And that's just me throwing stuff. Now, the Cavs have seen this opportunity, I think, since Boston has gone down. They want to make a big move here, right? I'm not opposed to the Cavs making a big move to get a superstar. I've never been opposed to that, right? The reason I've been saying I think the Cavs should run it back is, realistically, I think that's their best option. We'll see what's available via trades, but realistically, it seems like running it back is going to be their best option for a number of reasons, right? But Kevin Durant was a trade that they tried to make. Ultimately, they could not get Kevin Durant. It appears that Kevin wanted to go to other places than Cleveland, and wasn't willing to, go on the Cleveland offer. So they were out of that whole thing. And I think that boils down to the biggest problem that the Cavs are going to have. The Cavs have enough on this roster that they can offer that they can be taken seriously by a lot of teams when it comes to a trade for a big name. I think the issue the Cavs are always going to have is it's very likely that somebody else can outbid them or give the team or the player something that they want that Cleveland can't offer, right? In Kevin Durant's case, maybe the offer was great for from the Suns' perspective, but they didn't want to trade Kevin to Cleveland because Kevin didn't want to come to Cleveland, and Cleveland didn't have any connection that Kevin Durant found interesting enough to want to go to, right? That's something that you also have to consider. Like, is there a way you can convince this player to come to Cleveland? Like, if we can talk about trades that you want the Cavs to try, and I want the Cavs to try every trade possible that they truly believe will make this team better, because we're all in the business of the Cavs being a better basketball team. But the reality is, you can try all you want, but if you don't have somebody that there's like a legitimate connection to with the organization, whether it be a connection to Donovan Mitchell or a connection to a coach or something like that, that draws legitimate interest from a star, then it's very unlikely you're going to be able to bring in a star, right? Like, trading for Giannis, probably very unlikely, unless like you throw Evan in there for Milwaukee, and then maybe Giannis wants to come to Cleveland because he loves down. Like, I just don't see it. I don't see the connection there happening. But you want the Cavs to turn over every stone, and I'm happy that they seem to be looking over every option. I don't think the only way for the Cavs to be great is to run it back, but I think running it back will ultimately prove to be their best option. Because any trade the Cavs make, more than likely, like, unless they can swing Giannis, right? Giannis is the big name that's available that could change everything, right? You get Giannis, then it doesn't matter what happens with other players on your roster. You have Giannis Antetokounmpo. But unless you get Giannis, the reality is for the Cavs to do anything in the NBA Finals, for the Cavs to get to the NBA Finals, a lot of that's going to sit at the shoulder of the development of Evan Mobley, specifically in the fourth quarter. I think last year there was rapid growth, rapid development in his offensive game to the point to where he was able to get a bucket on command at times. And that's awesome from Evan, right? Now we need Evan to take that next step, which is to be involved in these fourth quarters, because that's my biggest complaint about Evan Mobley. And I think the biggest complaint anybody can have, the most valid complaint you can have about Evan Mobley is, he'll put up 30 and a half sometimes, but then you'll not hear from him for the whole rest of the game. You need Evan to be a factor in the fourth quarter, whether they're passing him the ball or whether he's just taking the ball. Evan needs to make that evolution. I truly believe that this iteration of the Cavs, they could trade Darius Garland, they could trade Jared Allen, But they're not going to win an NBA Finals unless Evan Mobley is the Finals MVP. He doesn't have to be the best player technically on the Cavs, but he has to be in the conversation. And right now we're not at that point, and we're seeing the limitations of this team when you're not at that point. Now, to be fair to Evan, he's young, and it's rare for a player his age to be expected to make that leap at this point, but that's just where we're at with him. He needs to do it this season because this is the best opportunity, it looks like, as far as June goes, for the team to get a championship. I think there are multiple paths for the Cavs to get a championship. They can make a couple of moves, switch things up, maybe trade Garland, get some better fits there, and win a championship that way if they make the right moves, right? Not if they just ship Garland out for nothing, but if they make the right moves, if they make the right move with Jared Allen, then there's a path to win a championship there as long as Evan Mobley makes that leap, right? But as far as moves that take that off the table, take the Evan Mobley leap off the table, there's just not that many of them, right? So more than likely, the Cavs' chances to win a championship are going to lie in Evan Mobley in the fourth quarter. Here's another thing I want to think about, right? Because we see Tyrese Halliburton pop his Achilles. We saw Jason Tatum pop his Achilles. And it makes me remember when Donovan Mitchell had a calf strain for most of the second round. And I remember watching him in that series against the Indiana Pacers. And every drive, I was scared to death that what happened to Jason Tatum, that what happened to Tyrese Halliburton was going to happen to Donovan Mitchell. Like, it felt like it was going to happen. We hear calf strain. You could see the calf strain clearly affecting him. Every time I hear calf strain, I think of Kevin Durant in the 2019 finals. And that's what I was terrified of happening. Now, fortunately for the Cavs, that did not happen. Donovan Mitchell did not tear his Achilles, right? Imagine the horrific place we'd be in if that happened. Because that would destroy a lot. Like, if Donovan Mitchell pops his Achilles, we're out. Like, unless Evan Mobley becomes an MVP candidate, there's really nothing we can do to get back to where we need to be. We're not going to be that serious of a team. So we dodged a bullet there because as much as we use Donovan Mitchell, I don't know how that did not happen for him. I mean, hopefully he can get rested over the summer and have that calf feeling excellent by the time he gets back for training camp. But I really do think we dodged a bullet there. But on top of all of that, really where I think the season went to shit for the Cavs, it was a little part of a game, and we had no idea what the fallout would be from this. But it happened in game 2 in Miami. Like, the season went to shit game 2 in Miami, and I hope the Cavs and Kenny Atkinson remember this. But the Cavs were up by like 20 to start the fourth quarter against Miami in game 2. And all they had to do was finish the game out. It was a game 2 or game 3. Either way, the Cavs were up. It was game 2 because Darius missed game 3 and 4. So game 2, the Cavs were up by like 20. They were clearly easily taking care of the Miami business. And then they let up a little bit. And when they let up, a couple of things happened, right? Miami made a comeback. The Cavs quelled it. They ended up winning the game. Obviously, the Cavs' most decisive sweep in NBA history. So they didn't have trouble with Miami because of game 2. But in that sequence, Donovan Mitchell re-aggravated his calf strain, I believe. And I know for a fact that that's also when Darius Garland hurt his toe, which required surgery. And what I'm hearing, he's going to be back in November. I say all this to say, where would the Cavs be right now, man, if they had just finished that blowout? If they got some Tristan Thompson minutes in game 2 of the playoffs? It's that small shit right there, right? That's the stuff that separates what ifs from winners. Right there, in my opinion. That's what separates them. And that might have been the difference between beating the Pacers, having a healthy Darius Garland, having a healthy Donovan Mitchell. Donovan's not shooting 23% because he re-aggravated his calf. Donovan Mitchell's toe isn't irritating him. All of a sudden, instead of shooting like 35% from three, you're shooting 40. And that might have been enough to beat the Pacers. And then you could have beat the New York Knicks. And then you probably could have, gotten into a series with the Thunder. They weren't unbeatable. Like, obviously, we saw that in this finals. They are the champions and they deserve the respect, but that's where they are. I hope Kenny Atkinson points to that and makes them remember not taking care of business one time. They slipped up one time in that Heat series, right? The one time they slipped up in that Heat series, let their foot off the gas, let Miami get a little run, extend the game longer than it needed to, is when everything went to shit for them. Or when the start of when everything went to shit for them. That one little moment. That's playoff basketball. That's why it's really, really hard to win an NBA Finals. And I hope Kenny is aware of that. And I'm sure he is. And I'm sure he's drilling this home to them. Like, think about it. Darius doesn't have to be in there and get a putback dunk late in that game. He doesn't mess up his toe. We have a point guard in the Pacers series. They're not able to press us as easily. Their whole defensive strategy kind of breaks down. And, because you got fresher legs, probably don't have the bad shooting that you had happen between Darius and Donovan. It's something to think about. And it's something I can't stop thinking about when it comes to this Cavs run this year. But we'll see what happens next year. Big opportunities unfolding. Cavs are looking to take advantage. I think they understand. They can't just sit and let it happen, right? Like, they have to try to make some stuff happen. And I got no problem with that. I just don't believe there's going to be much they can do at the end of the day, right? And I don't want them to get so fixated on making a trade that they just make one because, like, they feel like if they don't, they're failures. But yeah, explore every option. The East is wide open, and the Cavs have an opportunity here, but it's a long ways away. We're talking about capitalizing on this opportunity 364 days from now. So a lot of shit can change between now and then is my whole point. But that's what it looks like. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.